The Indianapolis Colts face a tough test this weekend as they take on the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers. Can Anthony Richardson show improvements in his accuracy? Or will the Steelers defense get the better of AR? Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast presented by Indianapolis Colts on SI.com, part of the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Andrew Moore, and as always, I'm joined here by my co-host and fellow writer at Horseshoe Huddle, Drake Wally. Drake, I don't know if I expected that the Colts would be 1-3 going into this game, and or 1-2, I should say, and the Steelers would be undefeated going into this matchup. But that defense for the Steelers has been playing lights out, and the Colts offense, let's just be honest, has been struggling a little bit. So in this matchup, it almost seems like one of the Colts' weaknesses is going up against the strength of the Steelers.
Yeah, and that's kind of disheartening just to hear that, that the weakness is going up against the power of a defense like that. And the way that we've seen AR be a little bit shaky, it kind of gives you, some sad vibes walking into this game. But we're going to talk in this episode about what the Colts need to do, what they're probably going to be looking to do, and why they might want to look toward the tape last year playing the Pittsburgh Steelers for a potential game plan. So we're going to dive into it. It's a great matchup, always a good one.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, historically, the Pittsburgh Steelers have gotten the best of the Indianapolis Colts. However, the Colts were able to beat down the Pittsburgh Steelers last year. The Steelers got out to a 13-0 lead, but then Gardner Minshew, Tyler Goodson, and DJ Montgomery were the heroes on the offensive side of the ball and led the Colts to victory. The only one on the active roster of those guys, still Tyler Goodson. So much different Colts team, much different Steelers team as well. No more Mitch Trubisky. It's Justin Fields at quarterback. We're going to dive into it all tonight. Tez is in the chat to start us off. What's up to you? Good to see you. We've got the GOAT, Logan Schmidt, as well. Not sure why the emoji isn't showing up, but we know we've got an emoji there. But Logan, good to see you, my brother. Patrick is giving off his prediction already. Steelers 22, Colts 10. TJ Watt with 2 sacks, Richardson with 2 interceptions, and Josh Downs with the only touchdown. And Patrick says, oh, and a Matt Gay missed field goal to top it off. Patrick hasn't been the most optimistic lately. Patrick, you start drinking some Kool-Aid. Start drinking some Kool-Aid there, brother. But hey, good to see you, man. Good to see you as always. We got Richie in the chat. I don't know if I can make it by 11. Not sure what that means, but hey, you're here now. So good to see you, Richie. And then Wyatt. AR takes a few steps forward while making the layups. That's the optimism we like to see. But guys, as you guys continue to roll in, please go follow us on all of our socials, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts_SI on X, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that bell so you know when Drake and I go live every Monday and Thursday night, or in case there's breaking news episodes, you don't want to miss us. And then if you can't catch us live or on YouTube, no worries. Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're on there as well. So make sure you subscribe, give us a 5-star review so we can reach other Colts fans just like you. And guys, we also, if you're on, you follow us on and subscribe on our on your audio platforms for podcasts, you get access to Horseshoe Huddle Halftime, our special audio only episodes in the middle of the week. So make sure to subscribe for that. But Drake, let's dive right into it. The Colts are actually 1.5-point dogs at home to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Over under is 40. I'll tell you right now, I'm probably going with the under on this one. So under is probably going to hit for a second week in a row. But the Colts 1.5-point underdogs, and like I always say, Vegas usually gives the home team a couple of points. So Vegas is saying that the Colts are probably, if the Colts were playing this in Pittsburgh, you're probably looking at 3.5 to 4-point underdogs for the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, and it kind of fits, even though Pittsburgh's missing a couple players defensively, especially Alex Highsmith, it just seems like, Richardson struggled against lesser defenses than Pittsburgh, so by just by default, it looks like a really tough matchup and a bad one for him on paper. And with good reason. I mean, you're talking about three of the most deadly defensive players. One of them is arguably on any given Sunday the best defensive player in TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Minkah Fitzpatrick. Those are just the three. And then they've got good complementary pieces too. So it's this defense, it's going to test AR, but man, we talk about those on-field reps that he needs, right? This is a great experience for him. And if he can somehow rise to the occasion and really make a lot of us look ridiculous, I mean, it's going to help his development, maybe fast track it, because it's a tough defense he's playing.
Exactly. We got Logan saying Colts 41, Steelers 3, Anthony Richardson 450 yards and 5 touchdowns. Can't get any more optimistic than that. Our good buddy Luke is in the chat as well. Good to see you, my brother. Luke of the Blue Stable. We actually joined Marcus and Landon over at the Blue Stable this week for their recap of the Colts Bears week 3 matchup. Yes, absolute legends. Make sure to go check those out. And then Paul Wilson, glad you're okay. This hurricane is serious. I'm in Florida. Yeah. It's a good job thankfully you're in a safe area. So want to miss you still, just to stay safe down there during the hurricane. But Drake, let's talk about Anthony Richardson from the University of Florida. Obviously, the talk all week has been his accuracy, his inability to hit the layups, not being able to make those easy throws. And he talked about it a little bit after the game. He took responsibility, said, I need to play better. He also went in and said that sometimes he's overthinking things, or he sees a guy wide open and he's rushing his throws because he's like, oh, he's open, I got to get him the football. And he's just overthinking. It's more thinking than just playing loose and throwing the football. And I think we touched on this on Monday. But to me, at least, it seems like when he's throwing the football deep, he's not thinking. He just sees a guy open and it's almost like muscle memory. He's just slinging the football around. But in that short to intermediate area, it's almost like he knows that's an area that he needs to work on. The confidence isn't there yet. So he's overthinking everything, overthinking how to throw the football, trying to make sure he gets the football to his receivers quickly. And it's causing these inadvertent mistakes. So, of course, this is a new week. He talked about it this week. I actually wrote about what he talked about, his accuracy and his plans. So make sure you check that out on horseshoehuddle.com. But Drake, when you look at this Steelers pass defense, they're 5th in the league against the pass at 157 yards allowed per game. Very stout pass defense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, you have a great pass rush. We'll talk about those guys in a little bit. But really, the question is, and are you expecting Anthony Richardson to be better this week against the Steelers? Do you expect him to take a step forward with his accuracy? And if so, or if not, how detrimental is it going to be to the winning efforts of the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday?
I gotta say, man, I think that we talked about the play calling being the issue. Potentially being putting too much on Anthony Richardson against the Packers, right? 34 dropbacks, that's too many. So then we talked about against Chicago. I mean, I got to be honest, man. Not since the Carson Wentz interception against the Titans have I seen an interception more like, oh, that's going to be on his record, than when Richardson rolls left, there's triple coverage in the end zone, and he just looks right at the Chicago defenders and throws it to them. Like, it's stuff like that. Like, you just have to – he's got to settle down. I think he's really erratic right now. He's trying to, like you said, just do too much. Hey, you can't fit that ball through the chest of that defender. I know that he's got the arm strength to do that, but he can't do that. So it's almost as if, like you mentioned, if it's a frozen rope throw or if it's a deep ball or an explosive play, Anthony Richardson, no problem. He doesn't even have to think about that. We saw it even with Doolan when he rolls right and threw it so damn hard that it could have put a hole through Azeez Al-Shaair. But when it comes to sitting in the pocket, stepping in, and just delivering a nice ball over the middle, like you said, he's overcompensating. He's kind of leaning back a little bit, and the ball sails up, and so therefore it goes farther. And it's like, it's just those little things that only live reps are going to fix. And he is going to have to develop some kind of rhythm. And I think the best way to do that, like we've talked about, no thinking, just get the ball out, RPOs, and then maybe take a couple occasional deep shots, but something to get him in a rhythm.
Yeah, I agree. And when you look at this Steelers defense as well in their secondary, I mean, obviously Minka
Oh,
Fitzpatrick, one of the best safeties in the NFL. You have Joey Porter Jr. there at cornerback. Up and coming cornerback that has definitely shown really good flashes. Deshaun Elliott's the other safety there. I think they also have Jackson, and then the nickel cornerback is Beanie Bishop Jr. So they've got some studs over there in the secondary, but I do think that the Colts are going to have opportunities in the pass game, and here's why. Because I do think that if Mike Tomlin would rather focus, or if Mike Tomlin would rather have Jonathan Taylor stopped and force Anthony Richardson to beat them than the other way around. So I do think that there's going to be opportunities for the Colts here in the passing game, because the Steelers are really going to have a concerted effort to stop Jonathan Taylor. The Steelers, and really we, not just the Steelers, but we have seen most teams that have played Anthony Richardson, especially this year, really a lot of zone defense, not much man to man. And the reason for that is because of Richardson's ability to scramble and pick up yards with his legs. If they're in man to man and you send guys deep, if Anthony Richardson takes off, there's no one there to stop Richardson. So most teams have been playing zone defense and just forcing, daring Anthony Richardson to beat them with his arm. So when you look at all this, I think that's what we're going to see. I still think we're going to see plenty of pressure. The Steelers always bring pressure, so Anthony Richardson is certainly going to have to deal with that. That's where Josh Downs comes in. That's where Michael Pittman comes in. Your guys that are typically your go-tos in the short to intermediate game. But I do think that the Steelers, I think they're going to play plenty of zone defense, and it's going to be up to Anthony Richardson to again stay in the pocket, just stay calm, don't rush things, and deliver the football accurately. If he can do that, I really do think Anthony Richardson can have some success against the Steelers defense. However, if he's rushing things, if the game is too fast for him, or is still really fast for him, then I think he's going to struggle a little bit, and you're probably going to see the same things that we have been seeing out of Anthony Richardson. So the question does become then, Drake, how do you get Anthony Richardson into a rhythm? If you're Shane Steichen, if you're Jim Bob Cooter, you're coming up with this offensive game plan, what are you doing and what are you implementing into this game plan for Sunday that you think is going to help really get Anthony Richardson into a rhythm and try to slow the game down for him a little bit?
I think I wish I could say to utilize your tight ends, because this would be great, because Alex Highsmith isn't playing in this game. He's a great linebacker, overlooked when you talk about the other guys, the other stars. But man, I wish that there was a little bit more of that tight end presence in the receiving game. So I guess if you want to like look at a player and say, this is when you could possibly really help out Anthony Richardson, it's Kylan Granson. I think that you need to get somebody over the middle, really. And then it opens up other areas in the passing game, but also the quarterback run. Get the linebackers thinking about something other than Jonathan Taylor. Okay, because you'll need Jonathan Taylor to win this game one way or another. I think that regardless of if it's a play, a situation, a quarter, whatever, the whole damn game, half of the game, you're going to be needing him at some point. And you can't just have Pittsburgh staring him down the whole game, stopping him the entire game with all of it on Richardson, a la week 2, when he had to basically shoulder the whole offense and threw 3 picks against the Packers. So I think that it's just about getting Richardson going, possibly on the ground, and maybe finally getting some production from your tight ends.
Yeah, I like that, because we haven't seen any production out of the tight ends this year.
Yeah,
Certainly not from Kyler Granson, Drew Ogletree. Mo Alley Cox, I think, has been the most productive tight end for the Indianapolis Colts, and he's typically your blocker. For me, I think it's kind of what I mentioned just a little bit ago. It's on Josh Downs and Michael Pittman. Those guys are your guys that your quick win wide receiver, and Josh Downs, who wasn't really involved too much last week against the Bears, and I really think that had to do the reason for that was because Josh Downs was still, again, he's getting his feet back. He hasn't played football in 6 weeks, was his first game. So he's still trying to get his legs underneath him as well. But again, Anthony Richardson was also missing some throws too. Michael Pittman Jr. has been open a lot. And I think that the Colts really need to use Michael Pittman Jr. more designed reads and more first option throws to Michael Pittman Jr. Because I don't think he's getting enough targets. I don't think he's involved enough, and that's your guy that you can just, he can run a 6 or 7 yard curl route, and that makes your job a lot easier if you're Anthony Richardson. If they're playing off of him or the Steelers are in zone, get him a 6 to 7 yard curl route. Michael Pittman might be able to pick up 2 to 3 yards after the catch, and then you're looking at 2nd and 1, 2nd and 2. Make things easy for the quarterback. Michael Pittman is very good as well as at finding the holes in those zone coverages. Look his way. I think, we really haven't seen the amount of targets that I think we should out of Michael Pittman Jr. And I think that if he's a bigger part of the game plan, Richardson can lean on him as well. And that'll help sustain drives and get Richardson into a rhythm as well. It's going to be a tough test, but I don't know if I'm going to absolutely give a prediction and say that Richardson is going to get better against the Steelers, but there's going to be opportunities. It's going to be on Anthony Richardson and this team just go out there and execute that. But let's move on to Jonathan Taylor, Drake, because Jonathan Taylor, a huge past couple of games, over at 100 yards in each one of those, 110 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Chicago Bears last weekend. But will Jonathan Taylor stay hot? The Steelers, like I keep mentioning, this defense is for real. The Steelers, 3rd in the NFL against the run, only allowing 71 yards per game. And Jonathan Taylor has beat that by, last week he beat that by 40, So I had mentioned earlier that Mike Tomlin is probably going to focus this defense in on stopping Jonathan Taylor first and letting forcing Anthony Richardson to beat them. So I ask you, Drake, what do you think? Do you think that that's going to be the case and Jonathan Taylor is going to be stuffed? Or do you have more confidence in Taylor and this offensive line that is honestly the best ranked offensive line in the NFL at this moment?
See, that's exactly the thing is when you take I think the old saying is the irresistible force and the immovable object. Man, when you talk about the playmaker though, and you talk about it just takes one open lane, okay, and that's an offensive line. If there's any offensive line in the entire NFL that can make one play happen for a running back and one running back to do that, it's this combination right here. So, yes, there are opportunities. There will be opportunities. There's opportunities every damn game for this to happen. That's why I say that, yes, you got to believe that Jonathan Taylor can pop off, even if it's just a 20, 30-yard run, early in the game. That's enough to make the defense think just a little bit differently. And then that might open up AR's legs. Maybe that opens up the RPO game. I think it's possible, but I also do think that right out of the gate, man, like you said, they're going to say, hey, look, the box is stacked. We have a spy looking right at you, and we're going to play loose zone defense, and we're going to challenge you to just try to hit these spots that you haven't been able to hit. So I think that they're going to make him throw early. So I assume Shane Steichen probably has some sort of quick passing game plan, potentially something up his sleeve with a deep play, but you got to really probably start with the pass in this one.
Yeah, I can see him doing that, but I could also see him testing the Steelers defense early with Jonathan Taylor, because Jonathan Taylor has been hot, because the offensive line has really been working. I could see him testing out and seeing what Jonathan Taylor can do against this unit. Now, obviously, you don't want to get down and you don't want to stick with the run too much, and then you're forced to kind of dig yourself out of a hole. But at the same time, it seems like Taylor and this offensive line are in a really good rhythm. So I don't abandon the run. Don't, just because that the Steelers are good against the run, don't be one dimensional from the jump. Keep going at the run. Keep using Jonathan Taylor, continue to get him touches, because again, all it takes is one time. Every single time Jonathan Taylor has the ball in his hands, he's a threat to go the distance. He really is. We saw that last week against the Bears, where he made that insane cut in the middle of traffic and he was gone. Now the Steelers defense much better than what the Colts faced last week against the Bears, but the point remains the same. When you have Jonathan Taylor, who's got really good momentum, the offensive line is humming at all cylinders. Yes, Braden Smith was on the injury report, but he was back at practice today. He was a full participant in practice, so I don't really anticipate that being an issue. I think Braden Smith is going to be just fine. When you have that offensive line out there and humming like they are, they're going to make some inroads. Now, do I think Jonathan Taylor goes over 100 yards? That's probably not likely. I could see him going for 80 yards, though, and a touchdown, and I think that would be effective, for Jonathan Taylor. If he runs the ball 15 to 17 times, 20 times, and he's got about 80 yards, that's still 4 yards a carry. That's still very productive on the ground. So just because this Steelers run defense is formidable, don't completely shy away from the run is all I'm saying to Shane Steichen. Now, obviously, if they're putting 8-9 men in the box, then it would be stupid to do that, and I would think that Anthony Richardson would check out of that. But at the same time, don't be afraid to run against a 6 or 7 man box is all I'm saying.
Yeah, and especially, again, you got to go back to who you have protecting your quarterback and who you have blocking for your running back. And you're looking at guys like Will Fries, guys like Quentin Nelson, Braden Smith especially. Those guys run blocking, absolute monsters. And especially when they get momentum going and they do pull blocks and everything, that's when you see Taylor get those one cuts because it opens up lanes the more guys you block, and then he's got a chance to hit a home run.
Exactly. Now, when we look at the Steelers' defensive line, Drake, I think I would put this up there with the Texans' defensive line in terms of the most dangerous unit that we have seen, or that the Colts have seen so far this year.
Sure.
Obviously, TJ Watt already has 3 sacks on the year. Cam Hayward is while he doesn't have the Patrick, you're a menace. Well, Cam Hayward isn't as young as he used to be. He could sure give Quentin Nelson some fits sometimes, and he's still a phenomenal player. So Drake, when you look at this defensive line for the Pittsburgh Steelers, are you worried going up against the Colts offensive line with this, or are you worried that the pressure is going to get to Anthony Richardson early on? Or again, it kind of goes back to the offensive line is really humming. So are you think that they're still in a really good spot to be able to protect against TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, and not allow these guys to really wreck the game?
Last year, I think Watt had like 2 sacks and then got hurt, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember if he got hurt, but he did have 2 sacks early in the game.
Early on. Now the difference is you're talking about Gardner Minshew, about 6'1", maybe 210, still big, but not TJ Watt big. Anthony Richardson's pretty much the same size as TJ Watt. So it's like it's not going to be as easy to get pressure on Richardson. He'll be able to also escape easier. But also, I'm not even necessarily with this line. It's not the pressure that has made Richardson throw those interceptions. It's just his mechanics. It's trying to do too much. It's not being relaxed enough and just letting the game come to him on those throws and just being natural with the release. So I'm not really too worried about that pressure. Now, every NFL offense should absolutely be worried about TJ Watt. Okay, yes. So I think that is there a chance he could have no sacks and the Colts contain him? Yeah, but I think you might have to double team. You might have to allocate a blocker in the backfield with Richardson. Is that Goodson? Is that Sermon? Is it not Taylor? Who knows? Does that change the game plan on how often 28 is out there? Who knows? So I think that it's going to be all about really containing TJ Watt, because if he does tee off 2-3 sacks, gets 5-6 pressures, it could really, really throw a wrench in your game plan.
Yeah, and TJ Watt had 2 sacks within the first 17 minutes in that game against the Colts last year, but then you didn't hear from him the rest of the game. And so that's the Colts found a way to contain TJ Watt, and what could be in the Colts' favor. Alex Highsmith isn't going to be out there for this game. He's a very good pass rusher. Yes, the Steelers do have Nick, I think is Nick Herbig, out of Wisconsin, who's in his second year, but again, he's not anywhere near what Highsmith is on that opposite side. So the Colts can be able to use that. And it seems like whenever the Colts have faced the Steelers with Braden Smith, TJ Watt hasn't been nearly as successful when Braden Smith is out there. So Paul Wilson with the $5 super chat, thank you so much for all of your support. And Paul says, even if they get to AR, the one part of AR they can't change is he is 250 pounds. So yeah, I mean that's exactly what Drake said. As he says, great. Drake said right as I said, hey, we're still going to highlight you, Paul. Absolutely. Thank you so much for all of your support. But it's going to be tough. Richardson is still tough to go down. He's only been sacked 4 times this year. So the Colts offensive line is doing a hell of a job keeping Anthony protected. And then when Anthony does have to scramble, Richardson does a good job of not going down and not being brought down for a sack. So I do think that there's going to be times, obviously, where TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, they win some of the battles. It's inevitable. They're fantastic football players. But as they always say, the guys on the other side get paid too. And the Colts offensive line is playing damn good right now. So I don't think either one of these guys is necessarily going to wreck the game, but you do still have to have a plan for each one of those, whether it is using a back to chip off a TJ Watt to give Braden Smith or Bernard Ryman some help at times, or you use a tight end on that side like Mo Alley Cox to chip a little bit. So you do have to have a plan, and you can't just let him go one-on-one the entire game. But I don't necessarily see TJ Watt completely blowing up this game either.
Yeah, and you're talking about an offensive line under Tony Soprano Jr. that has shown its mettle, and it has shown that it can get it done. And it also, going back to last year with the Raiders playing the Colts and Max Crosby, Braden Smith does not get talked about. He doesn't have a Pro Bowl, okay, but all he does is play good football. That's all he does is just protect the quarterback. Elite pass rushers have a problem getting around him consistently, getting through him, his technique. I mean, so the confidence is definitely there. It's just you're always scared with a guy like TJ Watt, a generational pass rusher, because he can have that 3-4 sack game on you.
Now let's turn our attention to the Colts defense. Drake, last week against the Bears, the run defense, much better. Now, Caleb Williams did have a lot of empty yardage there, but of course, Jalen Jones with the 2 interceptions. But I think, again, the Colts defense still has some work to do. And I don't think they're going to necessarily have the pleasure or the opportunity this week because they're not going up against that absolutely horrendous offensive line for the Chicago Bears. So, but I think priority number 1 for this team, we'll talk about the run defense in a minute, but it's you gotta get to Justin Fields. You really do. Justin Fields so far this year, 518 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Justin Fields has really taken care of the football, Drake, and he's not necessarily out there making the winning plays or carrying this Steelers team, but he's not losing them football games either. And it seems like in the past, that's what Justin Fields has struggled with, was just turning the football over, putting his team in precarious situations, or trying to do too much to try to bring his team along, and it would lead to some mistakes. But so far, he hasn't been able to do that. So how do you think this Colts defense is going to attack Justin Fields? Or say you were Gus Bradley, what would you do in order to try to rattle Justin Fields or knock him off his game?
Well, first off, credit to Mike Tomlin again. He goes to the playoffs last year with Mitch Trubisky and Mason Rudolph, gets Justin Fields. He's 3-0. The guy's a wizard. I think that Fields has been making a lot of, obviously there's been some explosive plays, but it's been a lot of smaller throws, simple throws. George Pickens is making big plays. I think he's averaging like 13 yards of a catch, but tight end like Pat Freiermuth's averaging just over 8 yards of reception. Najee Harris is averaging about 4.5, and Van Jefferson's averaging like 5. So they're putting Fields in a position kind of similar to Malik Willis with the Packers, where he's making throws that are in positions for him to succeed with the throw. It allows him to be comfortable. And now they also have had close games. They're not getting blown out of the freaking water. But I do think that there is an opportunity to make him uncomfortable if you can get pressure on him, because we kind of talked about it. Caleb Williams is slippery. He gets out of pressure. He really gets away from sacks. Fields is more accessible to sack. He is going to be more accessible to pressure. And I do think that Pittsburgh offensive line is exploitable. And in fact, they don't average over 4 yards a carry as a team. So you can get this done. Justin Fields, really, if you can even get a lead on the Pittsburgh Steelers, you force him to have to throw a little bit more, you might have a chance for a turnover.
Yeah, and I do think that the Colts, if the Colts can get going on offense, and I forgot to mention this in when we were talking about the offense, but I'll mention it now. When you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and who they played so far, in week 1, it was a Falcons team with Kirk Cousins that just did not look in sync. You know, Kirk Cousins was really knocking the rust off. They only allowed 10 points. Week 2 against the Denver Broncos, only allowed 6 points to a rookie Bo Nix. And the Broncos don't really have much firepower on offense. Then last week against the Chargers don't have much firepower, and Justin Herbert didn't even play the entire game. He left the game because of an ankle injury. So when you take all of that into account, the Steelers necessarily haven't been tested on defense either. So could it be a little bit of fool's gold with some of those numbers? Potentially, but I think if the Colts offense can get going, you know, and you force the Steelers' hands where it has to be in Justin Fields, it has to be Justin Fields that brings this team out and has to try to keep up with this Colts offense, then I think the Steelers could be in trouble, because then I think Justin Fields could really start to fold a little bit, start to get rattled, start to make mistakes, because he's trying to force things like I mentioned earlier. So I think it's going to be really key for the Colts to get off to a fast start on offense and defense, not allow the Steelers to just go right down the field, score a touchdown, and then you're immediately playing from behind. You know, be stout, come out with a lot of energy, and force a 3 and out. Keep the Steelers off the field. Allow your offense the opportunity, or if the Colts get the ball first, they don't score a touchdown, just keep it close. Don't allow the Steelers to get out to a lead, because if you do, then again, that takes a lot of the stuff that you want to do with your pass rush, and it allows the Steelers to really focus on running the football. Put it on Justin Fields' hands. Again, I would rather I think if you're Gus Bradley, you'd rather have Justin Fields go out there and try to beat you, rather than the Steelers run the football down your throat with Najee Harris for 30, 35 times a game, you know, and slow this game down, keep the defense out there, tire them out. Really try to force Justin Fields to attack this defense. And it's going to be kind of the same situation that we talked about with Caleb Williams as well. You got to keep him in the well. You got to keep him in the pocket. You can't let Fields get outside the pocket. You can't allow him to break contain. You can't get out of your gaps. So like it's like parting the Red Sea, and all of a sudden he's just got a ton of green grass right in front of him, and he's able to pick up 8 to 10 yards before a linebacker even gets in his vicinity. You know, I don't know if you necessarily have to have a spy on him at all times. I wouldn't rule it out on certainly some plays, but gap discipline and forcing Justin Fields to win from the pocket, that's your best chance of succeeding against Fields and the Steelers passing game, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to how you right now beat Anthony Richardson. You know, you just don't let that athleticism take over. Don't give him a lane. Don't give him an open deep ball, because Fields does have a good arm. You know, he can launch the ball down the field. He's completed, and I will give him credit. In that game against the Chargers, you're looking at a guy that had, I think it was 25 for 32 for 245. Now, he did throw a pick. But like you said, these games are really close. No more than 20 points in any one of them. If you get up, let's say the Colts get the football, they go and score right away. And then they can force a punt and get the ball back just right there in that situation, not even mentioning what could happen next. You're already putting the gas down, and the Steelers are already playing catch up because they're a running football team, and they don't have explosive runs. They just run the ball a lot. Okay. So like if you can force them to have to play catch up with you, I just don't see how they do it, man.
I don't see the Steelers team, even if the Steelers have success on offense, I just don't see them blowing the Colts out of the water on offense. I don't see the Steelers team putting up 30 this weekend, because I just don't think that's how they're built. They're built on controlling the football, running the football, time of possession, and then winning with their defense, with Justin Fields being more of a game manager rather than a difference maker at the quarterback position. And again, I think if you can keep him in the pocket, you allow Latu to get going. Hopefully Kwity Paye is out there. Hopefully Tyquan Lewis is out there. He missed practice again here today, so the Colts defensive line is looking kind of thin. But at the same time, I think that if you keep him in the keep him in the pocket, and force him to win from the pocket, that's going to be your best chance to succeed against Justin Fields. But when you look at the running game, obviously Fields can run the football. Najee Harris, 12th in the NFL in rushing with 209 yards. But again, kind of to your point, Drake, it's not an explosive runs that the Steelers team is generating. Najee Harris only has 3.8 yards per carry. For reference, Jonathan Taylor, he's averaging 5.1 yards per carry this season. So definitely more of a grinded out death by 1,000 cuts run game than the home run ability that the Colts have shown. So obviously the Colts run defense was much better last week, only allowing 63 yards by the Bears. Do I think that's going to be replicated against the Steelers? Probably not. I think the Steelers will probably have more success. They're just a better football team and better up front than the Chicago Bears. But I don't think that it's going to be another 200-yard outing that's allowed by this Colts team. But Drake, what do you think? What do you expect this Colts run defense to be like on Sunday? And how much success do you see Najee Harris having against this unit?
I like what you said about, do you think that the Colts are going to contain this Pittsburgh offense the way they did Chicago? Absolutely not. I do think that he's not an explosive runner. Okay. He's a bigger guy, but he kind of reminded me coming into the NFL. Obviously he's not as big or athletic as Derrick Henry, but just that size. I was like, he's a bigger running back that's going to be real hard to bring down. Mm-hmm. He is just not elusive. He's not explosive. Okay. You can tackle this guy. All right. Now he is still going to be physical, but you can absolutely limit this guy. Jaylen Warren is really the running back that I think you should worry about, but he right now isn't even on track to play. That's your explosive running back. That's your receiving threat. Najee Harris, 4 yards of reception. You're never worried about him pass catching against you. So I really think that if Warren can't suit up, which right now it doesn't look that way, and if it is all on Najee Harris, your most explosive runner is Justin Fields. So I just think that this is a really good opportunity to force Najee Harris under 3 yards a carry, and then really just try to focus more of the explosive run defense, if you will, on Justin Fields. Because again, I don't think Warren's playing. So there goes.
Yeah, Warren hasn't practiced all week, so I definitely think it's going to be on Najee Harris. Isaac Samalu has been dealing with a pec injury. He's been limited in practice all week, so we'll see if the Steelers get him back. But it could be very similar to the game plan that the Pittsburgh Steelers will probably have against this Colts offense. Force the quarterback to win from the pocket. Put most of your resources into stopping the run, not allowing the team to control the time of possession and control the game, running the football, and force the quarterback to go out there and win. And I think that obviously that's probably going to be the Steelers game plan, and it could be the Colts game plan as well. If you can force Justin Fields to try to beat you, I think that's your best. That's a better strategy than focusing all of your eggs on covering the wide receivers and the passing game for the Steelers, and then just allowing Najee Harris to go out there, run for $125 and 2 touchdowns, and the Steelers control the clock.
Yeah, and I just think that it's really going to be those interior gaps with Najee Harris because, like you said, I like how you mentioned it's a grinded out type of running approach where it's possession. It's just burning that clock. By the time the third quarter's halfway over, it's 13-0. It's not really a big lead, but you're so far behind and the score doesn't show it. That's the Steeler approach. So you really got to get them even one score behind, have them chase you, and it's a different ballgame.
Exactly. Now, if the Colts do focus on the run game, on stopping Najee Harris in this run game and force Justin Fields to beat you, that puts more of the onus on the defensive backs of the Indianapolis Colts to go up against these pass catchers for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We all know about George Pickens. He's easily the wide receiver 1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. After that, the Steelers don't have a lot of guys that you're necessarily scared of, but they can certainly make plays. I mean, obviously Van Jefferson, we know what he can do. He had time with the Rams where we saw that he can bring explosive plays. Calvin Austin is their slot wide receiver there. He can certainly make plays and be kind of a gadget guy. But and Pat Fryermuth as well. Pat Fryermuth, the tight end that's been there forever. Darnell Washington starting to come into his own, but it's really George Pickens, Drake. And when you look at this, obviously the Colts aren't going to have one specific corner following George Pickens around, but Pickens is going to be primarily on the outside. So you're looking at Jalen Jones, who's coming off of a career game. George Pickens isn't necessarily a burner. He's more of a physical wide receiver, but I think that falls into Jalen Jones' hands because Jalen Jones isn't necessarily a burner at corner either. He's more of a physical corner. So how do you expect George Pickens to go up against this Colts secondary? Who do you have more faith in? And is there a matchup within this pass catching group that kind of scares you if you're the Indianapolis Colts?
I go back to the way Cole Kmet he really did. I think the Colts were also playing some graceful defense at one point in that game, kind of letting the clock burn out, giving Williams those smaller throws. But Kmet absolutely shined against the Colts. Fryermuth has caught 12 out of his 13 targets. Okay. He's not explosive. He is literally Jack Doyle. That is who he is. That is who he reminds me of. He blocks like a freaking offensive tackle. He's a security blanket, big guy, big red zone guy. So that's the guy that I'm looking at. You just hope that it doesn't become an issue where by the end of the first half, he's got like 4 or 5 catches because he's not a big volume guy either. He's just more of that safety blanket. So that's really the guy I'm worried about. I mean, because Pickens really does not match up well with Jalen Jones. Okay. And I also don't think that he matches. I mean, he might match up well on the outside. Is it Sam Womack on the other side?
It's Sam Womack and Dallas Flowers have been rotating there
Okay.
at the outside, the other outside corner position.
Okay. Yeah. So I do think there's a chance that they could contain Pickens. So in that case, and it really shows you the lack of depth for their weapons. Okay. I do think Pat Fryermuth has some allure to have a good game and potentially a touchdown in this one. So.
Yeah, I could see. I definitely see your logic there. Now, surprisingly, I thought that he actually played better than this last year when the Colts played the Steelers. Fryermuth only had 3 catches for 16 yards against the Steelers last year. I obviously different quarterback. Mitch Trubisky really struggled last game, so it's hard to really take anything from that game and apply it to this one. But I do think that the Colts could be vulnerable there over the middle of the field. It's going to take, EJ Speed stepping up, Zaire Franklin, whoever is covering the middle of the field to really zone in and not allow Pat Fryermuth to be that security blanket for Justin Fields. Too many times in that game last Sunday, and too many times just in general since Gus Bradley has been the defensive coordinator for the Colts, is the Colts give up easy third down completions. They really like to back off on third down and try to keep everything in front of them, but at the same time, a lot of times that leads to a 10-yard completion on 3rd and 8, and it can be very, very frustrating, and it doesn't allow the Colts to get off the field. That can't happen, because that'll allow Justin Fields to get into a rhythm, and it will allow this Colts team, this defense, to be out there and get tired, So I do think that the Colts should try to be a little bit more aggressive with their coverages this time around, especially on 3rd down, because I don't see anyone outside of George Pickens winning in a deep ball. Winning a deep ball. I don't see Van Jefferson running away with it. I don't see Calvin Austin necessarily winning deep. So I do think you can be a little bit more aggressive. We'll see if Gus Bradley chooses to do that, or if we do see multiple easy completions on 3rd down. Let's go to our X factors for this weekend. And I think you could pick a lot of different guys for this, honestly, Drake, because this game is going to be very, very close, and I think it can be won in multiple different areas. So who is your X factor for this week 4 matchup?
Man, My brain just like had a short circuit. I had an answer and then I just like started staring at my cup for a second. So back to the show. Here I am. Josh Downs is going to be my X factor. Richardson needs easy completions. He needs quick win completions. Probably needs them in the middle because then you can open up more room for guys like Alec Pierce to potentially get an explosive pass. Pittman probably could also afford to be an X factor here, but I really think Josh Downs, he knows Richardson really well. He's played with him more probably. I really like that. And I think that if he can get 6, 7, 8 catches in this game somehow, I think it gives the Colts a good chance to win.
I like that. I like exactly what you said, and I'm going to go with the other wide receiver that you mentioned is mine, Michael Pittman Jr. So you took the words right out of my mouth. I think that Michael Pittman Jr. needs to be a bigger part of the game plan. I do think that there needs to be more first reads to Michael Pittman Jr. It is going to be on Anthony Richardson though to deliver the football to Michael Pittman Jr. as well, because against the Bears, let's be honest, Richardson missed Pittman multiple times. And so Pittman's stat line could have looked a lot better and Pittman could have had a bigger impact if Richardson was on target. So Richardson has to be on target for Pittman to have that type of impact. But I want to see 10 to 12 targets for Michael Pittman at minimum on Sunday. Michael Pittman Jr. needs to be involved. And I think Michael Pittman's going to have a little bit of juice coming into this game as well. Remember, against the Steelers last year, that's the game where DeMonte Casey really came at Michael Pittman and almost took his head off. Pittman had to leave the game, wasn't happy about that. Before Pittman left, and that was early in the game, Pittman was on fire, 4 catches, 78 yards against this Steelers defense. So Pittman was having himself a game. I think you try to replicate that. You try to get him more involved, not just the simple routes either, Drake, not just the 5 to 7 yard plays where you look up and Pittman has 6 catches, but it's only for 40 yards. Get him on some crossing routes, get him on some deep routes, throw it up to Michael Pittman. We really haven't seen the deep ball has been to Alec Pierce almost solely so far this year. Take a shot to Michael Pittman because teams are expecting you to go deep to Alec Pierce. They may not be expecting you to go deep to Michael Pittman. Test it out, because Pittman, a lot of times when he does go deep and has that opportunity, he's able to at least draw a defensive pass interference, if not come down with the football. So I'm going Michael Pittman Jr. as my X factor. I really think that the Colts should get him more involved in the game plan. NFL Nerd is going Bernard Ryman and Braden Smith as the X factor. Not a bad X factor there. Definitely going to have their hands full with TJ Watt, and they're going to have to force him to, are going to have to be the ones that don't allow him to take over the game. Paul Wilson is going Latu or Downs, Josh Downs for the X factor. So getting it on both sides of the football. All right, Drake, it's prediction time. Colts 1.5 point underdogs to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Over under is 40 on Sunday. Do the Colts end up going 2-2 in the month of September, or do you think they head into week 5 with a 1-3 record?
So I think this one is going to be just a little bit higher scoring than what I think it's going to actually hit the over.
Oh, okay.
And I think it's going to be 23-20 Indianapolis. And here's why. I do think that they are going to have Richardson ready for this game. Okay, now I know that he's missed some throws, and Andrew had a gold point not long ago, is that he's making the right reads. He's not making accurate throws. He's standing there in the pocket and not getting pressured. He's just missing these throws. The minute he can start connecting, all right, it's going to make things so much easier, kind of like Andrew said, when the game slows down. Now, you do that by getting him easy completions. We always talking about it, the RPO, but you lean on guys like Michael Pittman. You lean on guys like Josh Downs. Like you said, last season, Pittman was cooking that team. Now you did have Minshew. Now you've got Richardson, but guess what? Richardson's going to be harder to sack, harder to pressure. The offensive line is humming right now. They're healthy. Jonathan Taylor is in the backfield. Okay. And Michael Pittman is probably going to be able to play the entire game, knock on wood. And he has a vendetta, in my opinion. He's probably keeping it quiet. I think that this game is just one of those games where the Colts are going to figure it out. And the defense and Pittsburgh's lack of offensive weapons is going to be the X factor in this one. And I am way higher on Jaylen Warren than I am at Najee Harris. I think that that's a guy that can do more. He's more explosive and he just wins more.
I like it. I like it. It's a good explanation, Drake. And stats Matt going 20-17 Indy. Paul Wilson 21-13 Indy. We have
Oh, that'd be
Wyatt
nice.
Law saying 20-16 Colts with a physical slugfest. Ed Patrick say you guys have changed my mind. 19-17 Steelers. And yeah, what the hell, stats Matt? Why are you so late, brother? I'm very disappointed in you. We don't have a stats Matt stat of the day. Grow up, dude. Come on now. But Drake, I mean, I haven't picked against the Colts all season. Tonight's the night. I am going with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to take stats Matt's score, but flip it. I think the Steelers win 20-17. Stats Matt prepared for the hurricane. I didn't know you were down in Tampa or wherever. You need to I thought you were still in Southern Indiana, brother. And he's probably lying. But anyways, 20-17 Pittsburgh. I think that I do think that I do think that Anthony Richardson is going to look better. I will say that. But I don't think it's going to be good enough. I don't think he's going to be there yet that it's going to push the Colts over the top. I do think that with the Steelers focusing in on Jonathan Taylor, Taylor's not going to have the explosive game that we've seen the past couple of weeks. I could be wrong. Maybe Taylor proves me wrong and goes off. And then if that happens, then I think the Colts win, and pretty easily. But I think that the Steelers are going to force Anthony Richardson to beat them. I do think that Richardson will look better. I am predicting that his completion percentage will be probably around the 55%. I think he'll have his best completion percentage of the entire season. And I also think that he's not going to have any turnovers, but I just don't think it's going to be at a high enough level that we're going to see him be able to overcome to score enough points and get the victory on Sunday. I think that it is going to be very physical, a slugfest, as Wyatt Law said. But I do think in the end, it's probably going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers that do just enough, and that defense is going to hold Anthony Richardson to just slightly get the victory. And the thing is, I don't feel good about this prediction either. I don't feel very confident in this prediction. And honestly, if you ask me this in 24 hours, and if you look at our prediction piece, that our roundtable that's going to come out on horseshoehuddle.com, guys, I might change my answer by then. I'm going to think about this long and hard over the next couple of days before that comes out. But as of right now, I'm going Steelers 20, Indianapolis 17. I think they end up finishing 1-3 in September before they start looking at more AFC South opponents, because I think then they have the three AFC South games in the next 4 weeks. So it's going to be a gauntlet after this one.
Yeah, and that's a perfectly legitimate prediction. And kind of like you said, it could be 2017 Colts today, 23-20 Steelers tomorrow. I mean, this is one of those games that these are two teams that kind of right now have the same philosophy with quarterback. One is a defensive mastermind, the other is an offensive mastermind, and both teams tend to try to win in the trenches, on both sides of the ball. So it's just going to be one of those games that I don't think is going to be very high scoring. But if you're going to be at the game, and you're a Colts fan, fully expect the terrible tout to be there in droves.
Steelers fans are very good at traveling to away games. Patrick saying the stat of the day: 0 mentions of Grant Stewart tonight. Absolutely shameful. That's on me. That's on me, Patrick. I failed you as the CFO. Stats Matt with the actual stat of the day: the Steelers only have 3 offensive touchdowns this year. So exactly. They haven't. They're not going to blow out this Colts team, and that's why I don't exactly feel very good about this prediction. So it might be changing by the time we get to this weekend, but Colts could be without some defensive starters as well, and it might lead to some more success for the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. Which, speaking of which, Drake, let's look at the Colts injury report, because we do have some big names out here on this injury report here that missed practice on Thursday. Chris Lamont hasn't practiced all week. Neither has Kenny Moore, Kwity Paye. And Paye and Moore obviously are the big ones. Moore injured his hip in the fourth quarter. Paye his quad in the fourth quarter last week. Obviously, Kenny Moore, the best defensive back that the Colts have, and Chris Lamont is his backup there at the nickel. So both of your nickel cornerbacks haven't practiced all week. That's not a good sign for the Indianapolis Colts. And obviously, Kwity Paye is your best all-around pass rusher out there. So Paye and Moore especially, those would be really big losses for the Colts if they can't go.
Yeah, and I mean, you're talking about up front and run defense. I mean, Kwity Paye, phenomenal in run defense, and then Kenny Moore. And I do like how you pointed out Chris Lamons. I mean, I do look at like Tyquan Lewis, and it looks like it might be a rest day. Same for Kelly. It's encouraging to see that Braden Smith is going. And there you go, Patrick. Grant Stewart, healthy as hell. Look at that. he's good to go. But yeah, you really hope that especially Kenny Moore, I think, can play. I mean, if you had to do without one, it would probably be Kwity Paye because you could survive without him for a game. But man, Kenny Moore, just given that depth or lack of and how thin they are in that room, I just don't know what you're going to do. And that's where Calvin Austin might actually have success, is if Kenny Moore doesn't play.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. The thing is, if Kwity Paye is out, Tyquan Lewis is also on the injury report. Did not practice on Thursday after being full on Wednesday. So those are your two starting defensive ends. That's not good. So it's going to be interesting to see if either one of those guys practices on Friday. Kwity Paye was out watching practice today, at least. Kenny Moore was not. So it almost seems like Paye is on the way to you probably say Paye is closer to returning than Moore. I would say at this point. We'll have to see what happens tomorrow, but definitely watch for Paye, Moore, Tyquan Lewis. As you said, Grant Stewart, full practice all week, and then Ryan Kelly with a neck injury. Not sure how serious that is and whether that is just kind of more of a precautionary reason. We'll find out more tomorrow if Kelly does practice. If Kelly can't go, then it's probably Danny Pinter that gets the start there at center for the Indianapolis Colts. So definitely some big names on the practice squad here with just a couple of days before week 4. Obviously, the Colts will announce Friday afternoon. Shane Steichen will announce if anyone has been ruled out for the game on Sunday. Drake, let's talk about the latest Colts news and rumors, and we've got some good news to talk about today, starting with the guy that had a career day against the Chicago Bears. Jalen Jones was named AFC Defensive Player of the Week for his performance against the Bears. 5 tackles, tackle for loss, 2 interceptions. Well-deserved, Drake. Jalen Jones was absolutely on fire. I had a feeling he was going to get this award, and I'm very, very happy for the second-year corner out of Texas A&M.
Yeah, it just seemed like he was either holding the ball constantly or he was around the ball making – he did miss some tackles. I think that was something that we saw. But out of what you've just – this guy's story, 7th rounder, wasn't even expected to really make the roster. I know we didn't think he would. And here he is out there looking like a legitimate cornerback 1. And right now, and Andrews said this, so I can't take credit for it, but you feel more confident long-term with Jalen Jones than you do Juju Brents. So it just makes you even more excited for when 29 can return so you can freaking see these two on the field at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out to NFL Nerd for the super chat. Appreciate you, brother, for all of your support. And NFL Nerd says, was the AR to Sermon to push play big for Anthony Richardson's leadership? I don't know if it was necessarily big for his leadership, but it did show. Cool. I mean, he was going to do whatever he could to get Sermon across the line. And then once Richardson started pushing, you saw the offensive line get involved. You saw Quentin Nelson. You saw Bernard Ryman. You saw Mo Alley Cox in the scrum too. Definitely started the train to get Trey Sermon into the end zone. But I mean, I don't think Anthony Richardson's leadership has ever been in question for this team. Breaking down the huddle after the win, he even said, I got to be better for you guys. You guys all played great. I got to be better for you. The team is obviously behind him. You hear Quentin Nelson shout out, "We're here for you, brother. We're behind you, brother." So the leadership is not in question with Anthony Richardson. This team believes in him. They believe that he's a really good leader, and you've heard multiple teammates say that on multiple occasions as well.
Yeah, and it's just gonna I think that play where he helps shove Sermon into the end zone shows the grit. It shows that he's willing to do anything to win. It shows that he is willing to put the team first. And in that post-game breakdown, you hear him give credit to Jonathan Taylor and say that he's going to play better for the football team. So there's humility there too, and there's a lot of intelligence. I think that he's going to be just fine, man.
Exactly. NFL nerd, appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for all of your support. The Colts did make some practice squad moves as well. They did sign defensive tackle Josiah Branson and defensive end Derek Rivers to the practice squad. They also placed quarterback Jason Bean. All praise Jason Bean, the god. Jason Bean on the practice squad injured list. And then they did release cornerback Kelvin Joseph from the practice squad with his short stint with the Indianapolis Colts. So Colts signing some defensive linemen to the practice squad, probably due to the injuries to Kwity Paye, Tyquan Lewis. They just want to be prepared in case that does happen. But overall, I don't think they're that serious. It doesn't seem like Shane Steichen thinks they're that serious or that they're going to be a long-term thing. Tomorrow's going to be big though, because I think Kwity Paye would have to practice if he's going to play. Tyquan Lewis, we'll see. I think that one could be up in the air. I don't know if Kenny Moore, we've seen him play without practice before, but other times he hasn't practiced and he can't play. So tomorrow's practice report is going to be really big to see who is actually out there and who's going to be able to suit up against the Steelers.
Yeah, and you're just really hoping you see numbers 23 for Kenny Moore and 51 for Kwity Paye.
Exactly. So the Colts are taking on the Steelers this weekend, the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers. The Colts have a really good chance, Drake, I think, at pulling off the upset. I didn't pick them, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Colts do win again at home, finish September 2-2, and start building some momentum as we head into the second quarter of the season.
Yeah, you have two teams playing for something completely different. The Colts are trying to stabilize at 2-2, and the Steelers are trying to finish the month 4-0, which nobody thought that they would do with Wilson, but especially not with Fields. So regardless of what happens, you do have to give credit to Mike Tomlin for what he's done.
Exactly. So that's our show for tonight, everyone. Really appreciate you guys who tuned in to talk Colts football with us tonight and get set for the Steelers matchup. Shout out to Paul Wilson and NFL Nerd for our super chats, as well as everyone else that joined us tonight. We really appreciate all of your support. Please go follow us on all of our socials, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts_SI on X, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. And make sure you hit that bell, turn on the notifications so you never miss us. And then if you can't catch us on YouTube or live here, make sure you subscribe and give us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts so we can reach other Colts fans just like you. Drake, you've got some stuff on horseshoehuddle.com. Tell the people what they need to go check out.
Yeah, there's been a lot of coverage, but the one thing that I want everyone to be on the lookout for is tomorrow morning are going to be the 5 keys to a Colts victory over the Steelers. So go look out for that and all of the rest of the awesome content on our channel.
Definitely go give that a read myself. Got a piece out there today on Anthony Richardson, who really dove in on how he is addressing his accuracy issues. Was very honest by Anthony Richardson as well. So make sure to check that out. And I'll have more content out on horseshoehuddle.com tomorrow as well. Go follow Drake at DWalsterDrake. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL. And we'll be back Monday night to break down everything that we saw from the Colts Steelers matchup in week 4, and we'll see if the Colts have their second consecutive victory Monday. So let me get this banner down so we show all of our ats there. Again, at DWalsterDrake, at Andrew Moore NFL. We'll see you back here on Monday night, Colts fans, and hopefully on a victory Monday.